Welcome, everybody. I really like that song. Actually, a lot of people like that song. They actually asked me where I got it. That intro song, I got it out of one of those royalty-free music sites that I use for my YouTube channel. And I would like to welcome everybody. If you want to just give a shout out, where you coming from? I'm going to wait a little bit for more people to get in. We've got 5 viewers in the room right now. Today is our weekly Mexico Unveiled, Retired Life in Mexico, No Bull, live question and answer. Basically, ask me anything about Mexico live stream. I'm going to keep this up every week. And hello, Stephanie. Hello, Cindy. I'm going to keep this live stream up every week. And we're trying to get some more people in. I'm going to let it a little bit go a little bit. Hello from beautiful southern New Mexico. New Mexico, yes. Currently walking with the view of Oregon mountains. Oh wow, New Mexico. I'm actually from Santa Fe, Laura. I hope you guys are enjoying our surprise live streams. Usually what I do at the beginning of this live stream while people are coming in and joining in is that I explain where we're going. I'm going to do a little bit of video actually on these surprise live streams that I've been doing. I know I haven't released any videos lately. I've been settling in and I actually had a lot to do here. We've been settling back into our house. If you all didn't know, I had been saying that I'm moving to Monterrey and everything else, and we built a house over there for medical reasons. I know a lot of people said, "Are you crazy? Why are you moving to Monterrey?" Hi, Angie. How are you doing? Angie just dropped in. And everybody's like, "You're crazy. What are you doing moving to Monterrey? Why Monterrey?" And Crapple Productions. Hey, from John from New Jersey. How's it going? So we did build a house, and we put our house on the market actually, but we came back kind of to clean up and everybody. Hello, Michael and Retribution. Haven't seen you in a while from New York. Awesome. You're coming down to Merida soon. So we put our house on the market, but we got here. We were going to prepare to clean up and everything else. And we decided we loved San Miguel so much. And I think everybody that kept telling me that, why Monterrey? I think they had a point a little bit. So basically we're going to keep the house in Monterrey. But I think we're going to make San Miguel our home base after all. I'm going to have to change that in the description of my channel because I changed from San Miguel to Monterrey, and I'm going to change back from San Miguel. Hello from Nova Scotia, Elizabeth. How's it going? And Stephanie, you're coming down to San Miguel soon. So we're going to keep the house in San Miguel. And like I told you guys, I'm going to start this new concept that I don't think anybody's doing. And I actually got a gimbal this time, so it won't be so unsteady. But I decided to do these surprise live streams. And I know a lot of people do videos like vlogs, walking around, talking about things. And San Miguel's a great place to show you around the place. But all of these videos, they're all, Blaine, how's it going? From La Paz. And I know a lot of people do these videos or they go to the market. And actually, I did go to the market and collected a bunch of videos. And they're usually edited. This is how much we paid for our Airbnb. This is how much we did this. Or, oh, look at this. If we're in downtown, they talk about a subject. But it's all edited. And I said, why can't I just do something, just pop in and do the same thing, kind of like a vlog, live stream, ask me anything. We can talk, we can chat with each other. One of the goals of my channel is to get everybody motivated. People, and actually, not even just my live stream. Yeah, I talk a lot, and I'm talking this whole time, but to get some interaction. And what I love about my live streams is I see a lot of people ask questions, and a lot of people ask questions, but then another person will answer the question before I even get to answering the question. And not only that, but even walking around San Miguel, I can walk around San Miguel, do the vlog, and it's live, uncensored, and you guys get to chat, and you get to see a little bit of San Miguel, eat breakfast with me, eat lunch with me, whatever I plan to do that day. I plan to probably Tuesday go to the market, and just let's go live. Why not? And so we'll probably be doing that on Tuesday, because Tuesdays is the market day. And instead, and I had a bunch of stuff actually planned, and I mean, not planned, but a bunch of footage that I was going to put together a video. And I'm like, why not just go over there and show you guys straight live and on the spot? Now, the great thing about these lives too, I'm going to actually start a new playlist. I haven't had time yet. I'm going to tell you about another project that I'm involved in, but I'm going to start a new playlist basically called San Miguel Experience or something like that. So you can go back to the live streams, and so you'll be able to watch it like if it was a video, like a vlog video. So even if you miss it, I mean, you might miss the interaction, but then you get to still kind of see the restaurant that we're at or whatever it might be, just like any other vlog where they're eating breakfast and they're talking on the vlog. But this time it's actually going to be live. So hopefully it'll be something new. I don't know of any other YouTuber that's doing it. So let's see how it works out. And I'm going to keep doing that. I have some videos planned. The only thing is that we've been, the hard part is that we were settling in San Miguel. So I've done these little lives, and at the same time, I've been asked to do a couple of projects here. And so I've kind of been a little bit busy and tied up. And as you guys know, I always tell you that, all my stuff is free. I don't charge. I don't ask for anything. But at the same time, hey, I also have my own stuff that I need to do. So bear with me. But I will get some more videos out after this week, probably. I was asked this week, we're going to try something new also. I was asked to be part of a production that live from San Miguel. We have a jazz and blues singers that going to be here in San Miguel, playing at one of the local venues. And he's a renowned person, jazz and blues player, and we're going to actually be streaming live all the way from San Miguel. We're still working out the details. If I'm able to get it going, we're able to get it going. I will leave a link so you guys can watch live from San Miguel, an actual live concert, and that we're going to be streaming to a different channel, not to my channel. So I've been busy trying to get the logistics together because I wasn't planning on doing this. And so I'm trying to find all the equipment that I need. It's just, hopefully it'll work out. We'll see what happens, but it's great. And let's go back to let's get to your I know some comments here. Retribution, you're going to be in, like I said, you're going to be in Monterrey, in Merida. Stephanie, loving the surprise streams. Thank you. I'm hoping that everybody really likes the live stream. Let me see what else here. Michael, Monterrey is an up-and-coming big city feeling. It's the next Mexico City, though it's in the northern Mexico. Yeah, that's a lot. That's very true. Actually, Michael, and I don't know, Monterrey and Guadalajara fight to be the second largest city. I think Monterrey is probably a little bit larger in landmass, but the population goes back and forth. Sometimes Monterrey is the second largest city, and sometimes it's the third. I think it holds number two right now, if I'm not mistaken. But if you talk to anybody from Guadalajara, they'll tell you that they're the number two largest city, the second largest city. And if you talk to anybody from Monterrey, they'll say they're the second largest city. So I built a house in Monterrey, so I guess I live in the second largest city. But I think the last time I read statistics, it's the second largest. Oh, wow, Retribution. You spent 3 weeks in Hawaii. That's awesome. Missed a lot of your lives. Spent 3 weeks, so I caught up after I got home, though. Love the Dia de los Muertos videos. Thank you. Thanks, Retribution. And Michael, this weekend was epic. I was trying Shanghainese cuisine as my friend is Chinese American who lived in Colombia. Now he's here in San Diego. I also had an In-N-Out. Oh wow, you're back in and you're actually out of San Diego. That's right. Long story short, it'll be a live premiere or feature. And hi, Lisa, how are you doing? Retribution, yes, the peso is still fluctuating. Should I buy pesos at my bank at home or at a Casa de Cambio there? We will be doing a lot of local stuff that I'm sure won't accept card otherwise. You know what, Retribution, as far as Casa de Cambios, you're going to get the same rate as if you take, to be honest with you, yeah, you have to kind of go shopping around. The rates will vary. The way to get the actual official rate at the time would probably be just taking out of your ATM. Just make sure that they don't charge the international transaction fees. If you have, like I have two banks, they don't charge international transaction fees. Yeah, they do charge this little VAT fee tax, but I know Schwab and a couple of them, they'll take off the taxes or the transaction fee and the international transaction fee, and you get the actual exchange rate at the time. And the fluctuations are so much, Retribution, that, to be honest with you, to tell you the truth, the fluctuations are so much. I just take out of the ATM whenever from my American account, and one day I make 0.5 pesos more when I take the pesos out, and the other day I make 5.5 less. Where I would be really worried is if it started fluctuating back towards the 17s, in the low 17s, then I would be careful. But there have been some predictions, and I've already talked about it, that the peso by December will be back up to like 19. Other predictions say it's going to go down. A lot's going to depend on the U.S. economy, inflation rates, stuff like that. And Tom, hi Ernie, watched the new Gringos Are Us video today and was quite surprised when they did the financial breakdown of their time in Merida. It was actually quite a bit more expensive than their time in San Miguel de Allende. Yes, actually, Tom, I haven't seen that video yet. It came up on my feed because, of course, Gringos Are Us, I promote them a lot. And also I'm a subscriber, so I do promote their feed. Merida, believe it or not, I know that there is some couple of YouTubers in Merida that really promote the place. There are some issues in Merida that you have to be aware of. I didn't see Gringos Are Us, what they broke down. I know that they're staying in Airbnbs or rental properties while they're trying to find a place to live. So I don't know what they broke down. As far as food and stuff like that, I would probably, I don't know, to be honest with you, because I don't know how it would compare to San Miguel de Allende. San Miguel de Allende can be expensive, yes. But I will tell you what, Merida, one of the things you have to worry about is your electric bill. For example, that's one thing that's a difference between San Miguel de Allende right now. I don't have a heater or an air conditioner in my house. It's 70 degrees in my house right now, or 75 degrees, like normal in my house. It does get cool in the night. We just get underneath the blankets. It doesn't get cold. But we have kind of like San Diego weather all year round. So my electric bill here in San Miguel de Allende is nothing compared to what people are paying in Merida for air conditioning. And the problem in Merida is you pretty much need it almost year round. Yeah, there are some cool months there, but it can get pretty expensive. Those are the hidden costs that these people aren't telling you about. I know that one YouTuber that pushes Merida, he doesn't have air conditioning. Yeah, so he pays $300 or $300 every 2 months or $100 every 2 months in electricity, but he doesn't have air conditioning in his house. As a matter of fact, if you look at his videos, you can see that he's not running air conditioning in his house. So those are the things. I mean, if you're willing to put up without air conditioning, I'm sure maybe he has a window unit in his room or something that they only run very rarely or just cool it down and everything else at night. Or at night it gets cool enough to maintain the coolness. But Merida can be more expensive depending on where you live too. If you live in the local neighborhoods, probably rent's very inexpensive. Same thing here in San Miguel. If you live in a local neighborhood, it can be very affordable. If you go and you live out in a place like Ventanas, or you live in other neighborhoods here in San Miguel, it can be quite more expensive than Merida, believe it or not. So, I want to focus on affordable living here, but also with the actual understanding. As a matter of fact, some of the restaurants I'm going to go to are not your, I paid 100 pesos for my meal, but I'm going to give you an idea, of what you can find in San Miguel. You can go everything from $1 million, and I use housing for an example, I guess, because I'm so used to comparing the cost of living with housing. And so that you can go from $1 million house to $100,000 house. And so there's a big variation. And I always say it's all about expectations. And hello, Jim, Home Comforts from Toronto, Canada. Welcome. Oh, Angie was hoping to meet us when we were in San Miguel, but he had to return to Texas. My dad was unexpectedly. Oh, hopefully your dad's feeling better. Hopefully your dad's feeling better. Oh, Michael, there's been a lot of rumors from U.S. media saying that the peso is going down. However, due to the current economic situation, it might fluctuate, maybe even go all the way to the mid to end 1890s, or to the 19s. That's what I think you're trying to say. Um, And then you said you don't see the peso going down anytime soon. Actually, I'll tell you what, I think the peso, and I've always said this, I think it'll stabilize around where we're at right now. I don't think it'll go all the way, the exchange go down to where it's 20-1 again or 22-1. It's just, I think there's a lot of factors. There's too many factors. And I think the Mexican economy is that's one of the things that I pointed out in my video, that the Mexican economy is very, very strong. But there's a lot of factors. For example, the actual Canadian dollar, and I didn't know this until I researched this. Someone asked me to do a video and I actually researched it. The Canadian dollar hasn't fared as well as the US dollar. But the problem you have is that the US dollar is kind of like your world currency type of benchmark. So a lot of things that happen in the U.S., and I know that the U.S. is saying they're recovering, but we're still seeing interest rates that are going up, and they're trying to slow down inflation. Yes, inflation is slowing down, but the inflation numbers in the United States, I don't think are as accurate as they are saying. And here in Mexico, you're only running a 3 to 4% inflation compared to the United States. So yes, there's going to be a lot of things affected in the peso exchange rate, but I don't see the peso. I don't see us going back to 20 to 1, 22 to 1, 23 to 1, like, or 22 to 1. I think is at one point. I don't see that happening for a while unless the U.S. gets their act together with inflation and everything else. The other problem we have right now, the dollar may gain some more traction because we're in an election year, and that always kind of affects the value of the dollar. Also, the current Biden administration is going to have another Latin American summit to touch on immigration, investment, loans, compete against aggressive Chinese investment. Mexico hosted the last one recently. Yes, they did. I think those summits are good, but I think the vested interest that the U.S. has. I really don't get into politics, but I think one of the strong suits that Mexico has, Michael, is that to be honest with you, and where was I reading? I was reading actually in an article that Mexico is going to be the new China. That's what they say, as far as manufacturing and everything else. And that may be true. Not new China in the sense of taking over the world and all this stuff that we're talking about politically. No, the new China as far as supplying goods. And the reason why is because of what we call nearshoring. Nearshoring, I mean. When in Chinese, yes, they can have forced labor and build I don't know, your iPhone for $50 so that Apple can sell it for $6,000. But the problem is by the time you import all of that stuff from China, it has to go all the way over the sea and to the United States. Why not be able to produce that same iPhone for maybe $100, double or whatever? I'm just making up numbers here, and still sell it for $1,000. Yeah, you're paying more for labor in Mexico, but you're closer to the United States. You don't pay duties on the iPhone when it comes into the United States because you got NAFTA. So in the end, what it costs a company, for example, Apple, by the time the iPhone, yes, it's produced for $50 over there, but by the time the iPhone gets to the United States with all the duties and everything else, it may cost Apple $500 to get it to the United States or Canada, which are the biggest consumers right now in the world. And then, so you get it to Canada or United States for $500, you can actually accomplish getting it to the United States for that same $500 from Mexico, or maybe even cheaper. So a lot of companies are looking at Mexico. Actually, car companies, car manufacturing companies are going crazy coming here to Mexico. They're saying Mexico's the new Detroit. Nissan has plants here. Kia has plants here. Jeep has plants here. Tesla, as a matter of fact, also Tesla's going to have a gigafactory in Monterrey. There was some question as to whether they were, but they're going to have it. And so we have to look at the big picture here. And Mexico's economy is actually going to be positioned, like I said before in one of my live streams, to be a tier 1 country, what we call a tier 1 country. They're a tier 2 country. They're in the top 15. And I think they're ranked number 15. I've seen 15 and number 17, but they're 15. But they're actually slated to be number 8, probably within the next 5 to 10 years. And that makes them a tier 1 country, or what everybody else calls a first world country. And first world country has nothing to do with economics, or third world country has nothing to do with economics. If you look at the origin of the word first world and third world. But in an economic point, in an economic standpoint, we call them tier 1, tier 2, and tier 3 countries. And right now, Mexico's at tier 2, and it goes by top 10, top 20, top 30, or below, or top 20 and below. Um, Top 20 and above, top 10 to top 20 is a tier two, top 10 is a tier one, and Mexico is getting is going to be in that position to be a tier one country. So it's going to be competing. Um, so we'll see. It's too early to tell how the peso's going to do. Any other questions? And Michael, yes, the U.S. economy is still being stable because of the arms manufacture. Yeah, well, actually, 90% of the U.S. budget is based on military and military contracts. So a lot of right now, the economy is doing good because they're producing a lot on those contractor. Those contractors are producing a lot. You have a lot of jobs being produced by those military contractors that are producing arms. Also with Israel, aid to Israel. A lot of people need to understand, and I'm not going to get into politics again, but when we say we're going to do an aid package to a country, it doesn't mean we're going to send $1 billion over there. Those aid packages include support with food, support with weapons, support with not only arms, but the vehicles, armored vehicles, jets, whatever it might be. And all of that stuff is manufactured by all of these companies, which, of course, keep the economy going. So we'll have to see what happens. Any other questions or comments or suggestions? Let me see here. Let me make sure I'm not missing anything. Oh, Angie, you were in San Miguel. September and October was borderline uncomfortable at times from the heat. Actually, during the day, sometimes it can get a little bit. It can get a little bit. It can get a little bit hot, and in the summertime. But I'll tell you what, in the evenings it cools down. We've never really had a problem with the house getting too hot inside. Um, we also have a ventilation system. Actually, what it is, I think I showed you on my live stream when I was on my rooftop terrace. There was a table, and it looked down all the way down to my first floor. Um, we have a ventilation system, and heat rises. So that table has some windows underneath that let the heat rise and escape the house. So we stay pretty decently cool in here. Um, and then it's also dry, and so it does get, now if you're not used to it, um, there's a big difference because in Monterrey at 90 degrees in Monterrey and 90 degrees here is a totally different thing because of the humidity. You really feel it. So I guess maybe I'm a little bit more accustomed because I'm used. And actually, I retired out of South Texas, so I'm used to this hot, humid weather. So when I come here to 90 degrees, now I do know this summer, we did have a hot summer this summer, and I know Querétaro suffered. Actually, even their infrastructure suffered a little bit because everybody was turning on their air conditionings where they normally don't. Um, so that's one of the things that if you're used to hot and humid weather, this is like a dream, to be honest with you. Yeah, Mike, they're head to head competing. Actually, they go back and forth, and actually, they compete for manufacturing too. They go back and forth to be the second largest city, and they also go back and forth for manufacturing, as well as the tech sector. But a lot of that stuff is coming to like Querétaro has a lot of industry coming to Querétaro. There's a Kia plant right down the road from where I live. I mean, well, it's not really right down the road, but it's in Querétaro. Querétaro's only about 40 minutes away or 30 minutes away. Um, so there's a lot of industry. There's some plants going out on the highway to Querétaro. There's a whole industrial complex in Querétaro. There's a lot of tech going into Querétaro. Guadalajara's bringing a lot of that stuff in uh, to central Mexico. Um, and I think they're trying to compete. The only thing that Monterrey has over Guadalajara is they're closer to the border and they can get their items. Now, Guadalajara also is probably the number one manufacturer of furniture. Um, as a matter of fact, my kitchen in Monterrey came out of Guadalajara. They actually designed it in Monterrey for us. They assembled it in Guadalajara and then they sent it in pieces, of course, to assemble in our house in Monterrey. So Guadalajara has a lot of manufacturing. Tom was curious, without flying into Leon, which airport would you recommend to fly into to get to San Miguel de Allende by bus, ETN or others? Ciudad Mex, Guadalajara. I'm free to go anywhere, wherever I like, fortunately. Tom, I'll tell you where we don't use the Leon airport. The first time we came to Guadalajara, we flew into Leon. The problem with the Leon airport is you end up going through some pretty like desolated roads to get here. And so we really didn't like that. It's a major airport. We actually started flying in and out of Querétaro. Anytime we fly out of Querétaro. The only issue with the Querétaro airport, because we drive or we have a driver that drives us there. Sometimes we've actually paid a driver to go pick us up or drive us there to Querétaro. It's only 40 minutes away, literally and actually, if you go on the highway to Querétaro, it's kind of like a straight shot. So we go anywhere. We will fly to Monterrey. We fly international. We've flown international. There's a lot of direct flights to the United States from Querétaro. My son came and visited me, and he flew into Querétaro and flew out of Querétaro. But I drive there. I don't know about the bus service or the bus terminal or how close it is. Of maybe getting a bus from there. But we fly into Querétaro. Now, if you want to fly into Mexico City or Guadalajara, I would probably say either place is really, really good with infrastructure to get a taxi to the bus station. And then, of course, there's plenty of buses that come here to San Miguel. And the distance is about, I mean, when you get on a bus, you're going to have to stop. But going into Mexico City or going into Guadalajara is probably going to give you more of the scenic route, per se. So we didn't like flying into Leon, so we fly into Querétaro all the time. Oh, Michael, one question, Ernie. Are bears all over the metropolitan city of Monterrey? Actually, you brought up a good point, Michael. The bears are coming down from the mountain because of the drought, and there are bears that are appearing in Monterrey. Normally, they're in the neighborhoods that are close to the mountainside. I know that my in-laws in their now where I live, we haven't seen any bears. There hasn't been any reported bears, and actually we live close to the mountains. But the bears are coming into the city mostly because where we live is further out south. But in the more populated areas, the bears are coming down, and they're so smart because they know which day is trash day. And actually, in my in-laws, we haven't seen them, but my sister-in-law's seen the bears come down. And actually, they have chats in my in-laws' neighborhood. And we were walking the dog one day, and they were like, "Oh, there was a bear just in here." But they usually come down on trash day because they ransack the trash cans looking for food. And it's become a big problem there in Monterrey. But it's not in all the city. It's in certain areas. For example, where my in-laws live, it's close to the mountains or the hills side. And so it's easy access for the bears to come down. Now, they're not coming all the way down into town or all the way down into the central. They're just coming down into those neighborhoods that kind of border the sides of the mountain and the valley, because Monterrey is kind of a valley with mountains on both sides. So that's where you see the bears. But it's become a problem, actually, to be honest with you. Jim's Home Comfort. Is it difficult to get a dog into Mexico? Not sure if you want to discuss this. No, it's not difficult at all, Jim. Actually, believe it or not, I have two little girls. I have two fur babies, two little mini huskies. Now, Jim, it also depends where you're coming from. If you're coming from Canada or the United States, actually, you don't even need to need any kind of vet. I would suggest to get the vet clearance to travel or whatever. Uh, the biggest hurdle that you run into with bringing animals, well, dogs and cats. I'm not going to go into birds or anything else because those are different, or reptiles. Those you need special permits to bring into Mexico. But dogs and cats, I actually have a video on that. You're allowed to bring in so many, and the only thing that you're really limited by, if you're going to fly the dogs in, you have to fly them in on a crate. It's got to be a certain type of, it's got to be a secure crate. And then you really, a lot of times, have issues with the airlines, not really issues with the Mexican government. And if you cross them on a land border, you're supposed to get agriculturally inspected. When we cross on the land border and we have our little ones with us, there's no agriculture inspector in sight. I mean, even if we went to look for one at the border crossing, I think once or twice we ran across an agriculture inspector. They don't even ask for shot records anymore. I would still have the shot records with you. But I do know that the one time that we got stopped by an agriculture inspector, that was before they reformed the laws, and they did ask us for shot records, and then we had them with us, or I don't remember if we turned around and went back and got them. But I think it's like the only time we've ever seen an agricultural inspector. Now, if you fly them in, they will usually be inspected by an agricultural inspector. But the inspection is a visual inspection. They don't go and they don't bring a vet in. They just do a visual inspection, look in the crate and say, okay, the dog looks fine. And you shouldn't have any problem. The only thing that I've heard from people that have had bad experiences try to bring dogs in or cats in, this goes for cats also, is the airlines. Is the problems that they've had with the airlines not letting them fly. And actually some airlines are now if the dog is small enough, they will let you bring them on board. That was something that wasn't for a while. Some of the Mexican airlines weren't letting you do, but now you can. All you have to do is when you get off, if they request an agricultural inspection, you just take it over to the agricultural inspector. He's going to look at you and go, okay, looks good. And, what I always suggest though is have their shot records and have their I guess vet clearance. That way you don't run into anybody or an agriculture inspector that tries to, knowing that you're from another country, try to make up rules. Okay, well here's all my stuff. I haven't really seen that happen, but I always suggest you have it anyway. But it's very, very easy to bring animals in. Dogs and cats, not all animals. And you can still bring birds in and stuff like that, and reptiles, but you need a certain permits. They need to be quarantined before they come in. It's a whole process. But dogs and cats are just fine. Stephanie Beckman, we don't have heat or air in our house, San Miguel, and it stays very comfortable. Very thick brick walls. Yes, Stephanie, we stay very comfortable in our house also. I think maybe we've had a couple of times where it's hot, but you know what we use? We use those portable, they're not air conditioners. You put water in them and then it runs water through, because it's dry here. They call them swamp coolers, I guess, and they're portable swamp coolers, but we call them swamp coolers in New Mexico. But the water runs through and a fan runs through the water and it blows cool air. And those work really great. Some winters get kind of cold, but you just learn to wear sweats and everything else. And it usually gets warm during the day, warm enough that it doesn't get too bad. Okay, Susan, we're at Hirony. How would I go about finding a rural rental in Mexico? Not wanting to use Airbnb. Thank you. Love your channel. Susan, to be honest with you, I don't know too much about rural rentals. I think it depends on where you're going. There's plenty of real estate companies here. Um, and actually, believe it or not, if you go into any, depends where you're going, but most of the major real estate companies, for example, here in San Miguel de Allende, there's Keller Williams, the people that CDR Realty, International. There's a lot, Sotheby. There's a lot of different. I don't know if Sotheby's here, but there's a lot of international realty places. Um, and there's I probably in the country, it's going to be a little bit more trying to find out where you want to go and then maybe find a realty. I don't think realties is a local realty that's willing to do that. But what I would say is that maybe if you want to go into the little town, like for example, you'll see a lot of people put rental signs out. So if you go to the place where you want to go and kind of scope it out and see if there's any rental places, um, I don't. And as far as Airbnb, to be honest with you, I know you don't want to go Airbnb, but I when you said Airbnb, you're thinking a short-term rental, not like for 6 months or a year or whatever. Um, do you know who else that I don't know if you'll find, but we went through booking.com one time and we found a condo but this is of course in a touristy area in that area in Playa del Carmen. And when we talked to the rental property managers, they were managing it for a person, and then they put the listing on booking.com. And actually, we've traveled a couple of times to other countries where we go and find places on booking.com, and we find them, I don't know, like little hostels out in the middle of nowhere or whatever. Zipolite, through Biki, we found the place to rent or whatever in different places in Costa Rica, for example. The hotel was out in the middle of nowhere, but that was through booking.com. I don't know if maybe that would help. I've really never, oh, okay. And so to be honest with you, I don't know uh, how to find a rural rental. Um, Now, long term rentals, I would just go with a realtor. And the reason why I mentioned the international realtors is because a lot of times they don't, of course, Keller Williams, they're going to be here in San Miguel de Allende. They're not going to be renting something out in the middle of, in out of town. But what's really nice about getting a hold of an established realty is they know all the realtors get together. I'm gonna actually my realtor. I'm getting ready to interview him next week, and what to look for when we're renting a place or buying a place here in Mexico. And one of the things he's going to talk to you about probably is that here in Mexico, to rent or to be managed property or to sell property, you don't need a license. Anybody can sell property here in Mexico. Anybody can say, I'm a realtor here in Mexico. Now, there's an association here in Mexico called AMPI, which has tried to standardize the real estate business. They have courses and ethics. They're not a licensing board like you see in the United States, but they've gained enough of a reputation that if this realtor belongs to AMPI, took the AMPI courses, they're going to be your ones to go to because they're the ones that know real. Like it's sort of like saying we vouch for this realtor, and most of those major realties are AMPI realties realtors. And then they can also say, well, yeah, we don't do rural rentals, but guess what, we know this local agency here that does rural rentals. We'll give them, we'll hook you up with them. And sometimes, or maybe a sale, I want to buy a house out in the middle of nowhere. And they do just like they have this, AMPI has their own little MLS system and everything else. And so they may be able to help you. But I wish I had a better answer, Susan. Okay. Oh, okay. Baligo is about $30 from the airport in Querétaro, and the drivers are great. Um, yeah, I've heard of them before, um, and that's a way of getting instead of going taking the public transportation. Um, that's another option. We usually get just drivers. We had one that would just go pick us up here and then take us and then bring us back. But thank you, Susan, for that. And you actually, I take it you use the Querétaro airport too. Uh, most people here in San Miguel use the Querétaro airport. I don't know why, because our first trip to San Miguel de Allende, we were flown into Leon. And it was weird because we took the shuttle to San Miguel and we got a shuttle and it was like some of the roads were out in the middle of nowhere. It's kind of the road from here to Leon is kind of it's not a highway per se. The road from here to Querétaro Airport, it's a highway. It's literally a highway all the way. Part of the way it's a 2-lane highway, but it's a better road. You get there quicker. I mean, literally, I'm probably 40 minutes, but I'm on the exit to Querétaro. So if you live on my side of town, I could be at the airport in 45 minutes. You live on the other side of town, it's probably more like an hour to an hour and a half because of the traffic. Um, and Tom, being a residente permanente in Mexico, have you ever had INM check to see where you are living, etc.? I have heard that they actually do physical checks. I am a RP in Mexico, but still spending most of my time in the US. Actually, Tom, first of all, before I address the question of whether they do physical checks or not, I'm going to address one thing that's very clear. Most countries, and I'm just going to say this from most countries have a requirement, like in the United States. If you're a permanent resident in the United States and you live outside the United States, or you spend more than 180, I think it's 180 days outside of the United States, you lose your permanent residency. Usually when you get permanent residency in the United States, you're telling the United States that I am going to live here permanently. And it's kind of the same thing in Mexico. You're telling them I'm going to live here permanently. But the thing with residency here in Mexico is there is no requirement or minimum time. And I'm going to get into this again a little bit further. As a permanent resident or temporary resident, there is no requirement of living here in Mexico. In other words, you could be a permanent resident and living in the United States. You don't lose your permanent residency. You won't lose your temporary residency if you're living in the United States. As a matter of fact, if you live half time here, sometimes I even say if you live here for 3 months out of the year, and it's better to get temporary residency anyway or permanent residency. And when you get permanent residency, it doesn't expire unless you do something to lose it, but you're not going to lose your permanent residency. Now, the reason why you've heard them saying they do address checks, that's kind of true, but it's not totally accurate in the sense. Immigration requires that when you give them a reporting address, for example, and this is why they tell you, okay, if you're staying in an Airbnb, what address do you use? Well, you can use the Airbnb address, but as soon as you move permanently to a place, you need to change your address. And that is a requirement from immigration, that you must have a current address on file. And the current address technically is an address where they can go knocking on the door and actually check if you actually live there. Now, if you're not there, if you actually have an address, let's say it's your mother-in-law's, father-in-law's, brother, sister's, best friend, whoever it is, if immigration goes to at that house and that address, knocks on the door and says, hey, does Tom live here? And they say, well, yeah, when he's here, he lives here, but he's not here. Immigration is going to say, thank you very much. What's the penalty for not changing your address? It's a large fine. What happens a lot of times is that people don't change their address, and this is what's very important. And that's why I say do it now, because then you're going to forget, and then you're going to run into this problem. When people go to do something at this happens to temporary residents a lot. They get their residency, and they use an Airbnb address, or they use the address where they're living at the time, and they don't. Let's say they're living in, I don't know, Playa del Carmen right now, and then they move to Merida. Okay, they go to Merida office to renew their residency, and they say, okay, I live in Merida now. And then INM is going to say, wait a second, your address is in Playa del Carmen. Why isn't it in, you're saying you live in Merida now? They say yes. And this actually happened to a friend of mine from New Zealand. Well, that'll be a fine of, I don't remember, I think it was a substantial fine that he had to pay. And he was like, oh, shoot, because he was living in Querétaro when he got his residency. When he renewed, he was living in San Miguel de Allende. And he went to, and not thinking, not even knowing, he went to the INM office and said, yeah, I live in San Miguel de Allende now. That's the one problem that you'll run into. Now, you're a permanent resident. Permanent residency doesn't go away. You might say, well, then if I move from Playa del Carmen to, I don't know, Querétaro, no one's going to know. If for whatever reason you run into an issue, for example, and this is another example, you want to work. You don't need a work permit, but you still have to report that you're working to immigration. You don't need a permit, but you still have to technically report. Let's say you walk in and say, I got a job in Querétaro. And they look at your address and they says, well, okay, what are you doing? You live in Playa del Carmen. Oh, but yeah, I moved. And then they're going to say, oh, you didn't do your change of address within 30 days? Automatic fine. That's what can happen to you. But as far as being like, oh, he doesn't live in the he's not here and he's living in the United States, there's no, and as far as checks, immigration does, that I know of, nobody's ever shown up to my house, or no one's ever shown up to my address to ask if I live there. Probably immigration will do it. If, for example, I don't know, you have a disgruntled neighbor that goes and runs to immigration and says, this guy's not living here anymore. He's living somewhere else. You need to go check. Maybe, I don't know. Or maybe if there's some type of criminal investigation going on. And I'm not saying that you're the subject of investigation. Maybe you're a witness and the fiscal is looking for you, and they go to immigration because they know you're a permanent resident. Immigration goes, oh, he lives in Playa del Carmen. And they show up to your address. The feds show up to your address because they want to interview you and you're not there. Then they're going to report back to immigration that you're not there. So do you kind of get where I'm coming from, Tom? You still have to keep your address up to date. And if it's not up to date in the sense of, you know what, and I have this question asked to me all the time, that, okay, I got my permanent residency. I don't have to live there. I live in the United States, but I use my permanent residency, and we, I don't know, go to Playa del Carmen one year, spend 6 months. Then we go to Merida the following year. We spend 6 months there. So we live back and forth from Mexico, but we never have a steady address. What I tell people to do is find somebody that you know, a friend that you know that you can actually domicile there in a sense, and you can have an address there that's permanent, so that if someone is looking for you, let's say you're a witness and the feds look for you, and let's say you're living in Merida, but your best friend lives in, I don't know, or you have family in Playa, and you use their address. Well, the people in Playa can locate you and say, oh yeah, well, he's not here right now. They live in different places. They're staying in a different place. They usually live in the United States. Let me give them a call. Um, the main reason why immigration makes sure that you have your address correct is if they ever need to get a hold of you for whatever reason. Let's say they need to send you a notice, and they'll send a notice to that address. And let's say the notice says I don't know, I'll give you an example. They changed this is not going to, please don't get me on this, but I'm just giving a hypothetical situation here. They changed the immigration cards. Now they're not green anymore. They're a new type of card. I haven't heard anything of immigration saying that all the people that have the old card, they take the old card and the new card. The new card has some security features on it. It looks different. As a matter of fact, I've even heard of issues where the immigration officers have told them when they come in, when you fly in, hey, you still have the green card. You have to go to I&M to get a new card. That's not true. They just don't know what's going on. They just know that they see another different kind of card. And then this one, they say it expired. But right now, there's no regulation, no rules that you have to get a new card. But what happens if one day immigration says everybody needs to get a new card? All residents need to go to the new card. And that could happen. It's very possible. Well, what happens if you have to go to the new card? Well, we'll send out a notice. And what if they send out a notice and your address is at an Airbnb that you originally did 10 years ago? Then there's no way of finding you. And then you come in and then they say, hey, we tried to get a hold of you, but you weren't at your address. So if that makes sense, hopefully that'll help. Hey, Wilfredo, great to see you. Yes, Michael, yes, they do have a bad reputation for customer service. It can be a nightmare depending reception of, yes. And the reason why I brought that up, what Michael was talking about as far as bad customer service, as I've heard when go back to the dog question, there's been issues with actually even sometimes the airlines refusing to let the dog board the plane. So those are the issues. You're going to run into more issues bringing a dog in with the airlines. If you bring them in on land, no. Actually, my brother-in-law travels back and forth from McAllen, Texas to Monterrey on a regular basis, brings them in and takes them out all the time. Nobody says anything. Oh, Wilfredo, there is the website where you can register your pet ahead, bring him then. I did show my paperwork at the airport, no problems. Yeah, I'm not aware of that website, but probably it'd be a good idea to do that. Um, but like I said, the requirements are that the dog or the cat be inspected by an agricultural inspector, and it's a visual inspection. It's not a detailed, inspection. Now, if you come from certain countries, they still require vaccinations. Actually, if you refuse, one of my first videos was if you can bring a pet in, and it tells which country. I don't know if I told which countries it is. I don't remember, to be honest with you. It's been such a long time. That was one of my first videos. But certain countries, you still have to bring in vaccination records. But if you're coming from the United States, I believe Canada, you don't even need vaccination records to bring your dog in. Yes, Stephanie, I agree. The trip from Leon made me nervous. It's so desolate. Yes, it's desolate, and sometimes some of the road we were like literally the road was missing, and the we were going over. It's not well taken care of. And then, as a permanent resident, what is the immigration requirement when flying to TJ and walking over the bridge to the U.S. side? Don't want to jeopardize our status. Um, Here's the thing, Miguel. you're not going to have an issue jeopardizing your status in a sense. What everybody needs to understand here about immigration, they actually track you coming in and out of the country. And the reason is for statistical purposes. They want to see when you leave and when you come back. And usually when you fly out on an international flight, of course, before you used to have to check in INM. And then when you come back, you go through you can go through the Mexican national lines as a permanent resident, and you check back in. So they put you in the computer as leaving as a permanent resident or a temporary resident, and they stamp your passport, and then they stamp you coming back in. And that is kept for statistical purposes, but it also has another purpose. If you're looking into getting Mexican citizenship, one of the requirements is that you could not have been out of the country more than 180 days within the previous 2 years of applying for citizenship. So since they check you in and they check you out, they know how many days you've been out of the country, right? And they put you in the computer system. Now, what you're talking about and flying into Tijuana and then walking over to San Diego, walking over the bridge, you're going to fly into a Mexican airport. You're not going to fly into a U.S. airport. Here's the thing. I mean technically you're supposed to go over to immigration and say, I'm going to walk out of the country, and they're supposed to stamp your passport. Here's the problem at most border crossings. They're going to look at you funny like, why? I don't know what you're talking about. The reason why is that most border crossings, most Mexican citizens, even citizens, I'm talking about citizens, American citizens, when you leave, there is nobody checking you. When you leave from Mexico into the United States, there is no immigration check. There's nobody stopping you saying, where are you going? They just, as a matter of fact, when you walk across the border in TJ, they're just going to, you just basically pay a fee and you walk across, right? And so you might end up with this confusion. As a matter of fact, I even had a person Eagle Pass that passed through Eagle Pass that was telling me, yeah, we went to the immigration, we did our thing really officially and said, hey, we need to be checked out. And the guy looked at him like, why? And then he says, no, but I have to have a passport stamp and I need it. You need to check me out. And they said, why? And they kept on insisting that they didn't have to do it. And he said, no, I want a stamp in my passport. I want it. The reason why he needed it, though, is because he was going to fly back. And in Mexico City, they were going to ask him, hey, how come you didn't check out? So it all depends. Miguel, you're going to get a slap on the wrist if you don't check out. And if you're going to come back in, let's say you're going to walk across to TJ, but you're going to fly back into Mexico City. When you get to Mexico City at the airport, they're like, where's your stamp? And even if you don't show up in the computer, and actually they didn't even check him in the computer. And he says, this is what I'm worried about. I made him stamp my passport and put RT Residency, like they do at the airport. And I'm scared because they didn't put me in the computer. So when I check in, I'm not going to be in the computer. And I'm saying, well, at least you got the stamp. So you can tell them, hey, it's not my problem. They didn't check me into the computer. I got my stamp. So you're going to need that stamp. Walking across the border, and then let's say your flight is back out of TJ and walking back across the border, I guarantee you no one's going to stop you and no one's going to ask. If you want to be within lawful, you're not risking losing it. What will happen mostly is even if you're coming back in, first of all, you don't have to check in with immigration. The only people that check you when you're coming in is customs. Unless you go to the immigration, you have to ask, hey, where's the immigration? I need to go get my FM. As a matter of fact, a lot of people enter into Mexico. See, we're used to in the United States where it's customs and immigration. So when you cross in the United States, they ask you, U.S. citizen, or what are you bringing? Or you bring in a foreign passport. Let's say you're a Mexican citizen. You show them your foreign passport. They say, okay, go over there to immigration and get your permission, right? Nobody tells you in Mexico to go over to immigration and get your permission. you just walk or you drive in. As a matter of fact, I was talking about customs. They have this green light and red light. If you get the green light, you just keep driving. And I know people that keep driving and they're like already all the way almost. There was one couple that was almost to Cancun and they were like, oh, were we supposed to get a permission at the border? But nobody asked us. Nobody stopped us. Nobody asked us. No, it's your responsibility to go to immigration. So if you really want to be on the up and up, Miguel, go to immigration, find them. And here's the other thing too. Usually most of the time it's in the middle. But if you're exiting and you say, where's immigration? They're going to be like, it's on the other side of the entries. Why the heck do you need to go to immigration? So you shouldn't have a problem going back in. Where I tell people you need to make sure you check out, even if they're going to look at you kind of weird and say, I'm not going to stamp your passport. Why do I need to stamp your passport? Because they're on a land border. They're not used to seeing people come in and say, hey, I'm reporting into, maybe they do, depending on the immigration officer. But you do need it if you're going to walk out or drive out, but then you're going to fly back in. You do need that passport stamp saying that you left. And usually it's a passport stamp and they put entrada for entering or they put salida. And also that serves as a record because if you're applying for Mexican citizenship, even if you don't put you in the computer, they look at your passport and see how many entradas and salidas you have, and they track you of how many days you've been out of the country. So now here is the thing that you don't ever, did I say ever want to do is come in on your U.S. passport and check in as a tourist for whatever reason, to get a tip or whatever, or the immigration officer checks you in as a tourist and gives you 180 days and you're like, wait, but I showed you my card and my passport, and they check you in as a tourist. It is very hard to fix. That you will automatically lose your residency. And then I've had people that the immigration officer was in the wrong. They literally, one person actually went back and was able to, hey, you checked me in as a tourist. Was that he actually saw on his passport where they checked him in as a tourist. And that time they were able to fix it. But if they don't fix it right then and there, you're going to have to go to the immigration office, hire somebody. And some people have had, it's a nightmare. And okay, Laura, at CBX, there's a computerized system that can be used to make declarations. I have not used them, but I would stop to see if you can record your exit as a permanent resident. Laura, if you're talking about at CBX, the kiosks, don't use them. Right now, the kiosks are only for tourists. Supposedly, eventually, they're supposed to have this trusted traveler program that you can check in and check out through the kiosk. The kiosk right now will check you in as a tourist. Now, I'm not aware of any kiosk going out. The declarations that you'll be making are coming in, and that's the kiosk coming in. There's several people that have made that mistake, and they scan their passport on the kiosk. They come in, and it gives them their 180 days, and they actually have had problems. Those kiosks are eventually, that's what I've been told, and I've actually read, eventually there's going to be a special trusted traveler program where you can check in through the kiosk, but right now that's for tourists checking in. That's a big no-no, and checking on all those kiosks. Unless that's changed or immigration has changed that, you need to specifically ask, Laura, ask the immigration if that's just for tourists or if it's for permanent residents. And even then, I would check in the normal way, because sometimes the right hand doesn't talk to the left hand here in Mexico, and sometimes you might get the wrong information. I'm not saying the immigration officers don't know what they're doing, but sometimes maybe if they started accepting, maybe we're told, oh yeah, the machines are going to start working next week, and maybe they're not working yet, and somebody accidentally thinks that they're working, and then they tell you the wrong information, and you just don't want to risk it. Not until it officially comes out that those are being used for they're being used for everybody. Michael, funny enough, I actually one time when I flew from Culiacan to Tijuana, I remember crossing in the San Diego using the CBX before I went to the American side. There was a Mexican immigration officer. Oh wow. I didn't, you know what? The Mexican immigration guys, I never see them. Actually, they have their little office and they don't even come out. I mean, you have to go into the office to get your checking. Now, I do know. Now, I will tell you one thing though, Michael. We have been checked by immigration. They'll at the airport, flying into Monterrey. Literally, they were doing immigration checks. Planes deboarding in Monterrey. But normally, unless it's a revision outbound, I've been stopped outbound. Literally, they've asked me for my permanent residency card in Cancun when we were going out, flying out of Cancun. And actually, I was destination Monterrey, believe it or not, but they still check my immigration status. But I haven't seen at the land borders. Actually, it's very rare to see. You'll see customs now. You'll see military actually, because the militaries have taken over the ports, including at the airports. Military has actually taken over the airports, taking control of the airports. So that's interesting. If you were able to cross it to San Diego without any issue. Um, yeah, from Tijuana to San Diego, there's so much going on there as far as people coming back and forth. There's a lot of people that live in Tijuana and work in San Diego. Um, I've never at a land border, to be honest with you, I've never seen anybody check, uh, doing inspections going out or coming in. Um, Maybe at the pedestrian, maybe they tried to check, but uh, you have to understand what a lot of people don't understand at a lot of the land borders. For example, on the northern part of Mexico, the northern border, um, and you got to understand that that first 20 kilometers is a free zone. So people travel back and forth freely. Okay. So really, you don't see a lot of concern from immigration. Yeah, you do from customs because they're looking for stuff coming in with Mexican customs. But immigration just assumes, I mean, I'm not, this is to be honest with you, immigration just assumes if you're going to cross into the border, you're going to come into, I don't know, Reynosa, Matamoros, Nuevo Laredo. You're coming in for medication. You don't need an FMM to come in for medication. You can come in and spend up to 72 hours in Mexico without any problem. I mean, literally, in the free zone, you can spend as much time as you want to. Now, technically, I know Baja's a free zone, and you still have to get an FMM if you're going to stay for an extended period of time. But if you're just going to go into Tijuana, buy your medication, and come back out. So immigration, their attitude is, why am I going to check this guy coming in and check his passport and where is he going and everything else, because he might just be coming into Tijuana, or he might be just coming into Reynosa or Matamoros just to buy his medication and leave. I mean, literally people walk in and walk out to Mexico. So immigration kind of has this attitude that if you're going to go down to La Paz and you're going to spend 3 months in La Paz or 4 months in La Paz, then it's your responsibility to stop at immigration and get your FMM. Literally, it's your responsibility. So that you're going to see that happen all the time. You won't see immigrate. They're not going to make an effort to see if you're legal or not legal, because It's like they just assume you're going to come in here. And if you're going to go somewhere else, or you're going to go down to Cancun, or you're going to fly down to, I don't know, Merida, or you're going to take the air at the airport, at the Tijuana airport, you're going to fly down to Cancun for vacation. They don't know. And that's where they say it's your responsibility to stop by immigration and get your FMM. So you're not going to see a lot of immigration inspections there, or you're not going to see anybody there. And actually, that's really weird that people were checking out that one time. Wilfredo, I'm a permanent resident, in and out without any problem. I've never checked out when leaving and go to the Mexican line coming in without a problem. Um, I I do know now, as far as checking out, I know that if you the airlines wouldn't let you board. Uh, Literally, if you they wouldn't let you board the plane if you didn't check in with immigration, have an FMM and an ex-FMM. Now I know at the Mexican border, at the land borders, coming and going is not a big deal. It's just normal. Uh, so nobody checks you coming in, and nobody checks you going out. Um, Now I do know that now that the system is electronic, um, now that's being handled at the ticket counter at most airports. What I tell people to do is check at the ticket counter, whatever airport, because I don't keep track of what airport is checking and what's not. But most of them are actually at the airport writing something in your passport for the immigration, and the system's supposed to kind of mesh. Um, I don't know how they're doing it. Uh, yeah, if you're flying into Querétaro, maybe they've already gone to the deal, but basically, it's supposed to be seamless now. You just go in through the Mexican line when you come in, and they'll stamp your passport and put RT or PR or RP, uh, or yeah, RP, Residente Permanente, and then they'll just put the date. Um, and supposedly now your exit's supposed to be taken care of at the ticket counter, but some airports are still, I don't know, still doing it where you have to check in, but not. Michael Huerito. Yes, I've seen the National Guard has taken over the airports, ports of entry within the United. Yes, they have, Michael. Actually, the land borders, they've been in control of the land borders for a while now. The airports, I think it was a couple of months ago that they actually took control of the airport. Actually, they're taking control of administrating the airport, administration of the airports now. Excuse me, all the international airports. So yeah, Querétaro, Wilfredo, if you're flying out of Querétaro, I think Querétaro is one of the airports that's already taking, they automatically, you automatically get checked out, and then you come in through the Mexican line with your card, and then you're checked into the computer. Um, but a lot of that changed with the electronic FMM. Uh, but for a while, airports were still making you, and the ticket counter might make you go to the immigration office for whatever reason. But that's supposed to be the taken care of at the ticket counter. And actually, the way it worked before, airlines, you have to understand, they're not immigration. They're not enforcing it. This happens in the United States too with your I-94s. When you travel, if you're traveling in on a visa and you're leaving, the airline has to collect your I-94. You can't even get onto the plane without it, without them collecting one. You're not supposed to lose it and everything else. The airline, if they let you get on the plane without collecting that I-94, they can get fined. And the same thing happens in Mexico. They have to work under the regulations of Mexico. So if Mexico says don't let anybody board the plane unless they have an FMM going out, if they're resident, permanent resident or temporary resident, then what happens is that they can get fined for letting you get on the plane. That's basically why the airlines are kind of given power, but they're not. Um, as a matter of fact, um, one of the requirements for coming back to the United States, when you fly back, the airline has to check your passport, right? And if you don't have your American passport, they say you can't get on the plane. Literally, and as a matter of fact, I've even had people that lost their passports when I was in Brazil. They lost their passports in Brazil and they had to come to the embassy to get a temporary passport just to go home. And the airlines won't let you get on the plane. They won't even let you get on the plane. And you're thinking, what the heck's going on? I'm an American citizen. I can get into the United States. They can't deny me entry. And yeah, that's true. They can't deny you entry. If you're a United States citizen and you can prove that you're a United States citizen and you go into the country and you cross at the border, and the only thing that they can do is they can actually delay you for a while to make sure they confirm that you're a U.S. citizen. They cannot deny you entry into your own country. I mean, that's obvious, right? And people have asked me, and they would even ask me, well, then why can't I just get on the plane? It's because the airline gets fined for letting you get on the plane, because kind of the airline does control, and or you have to have a travel document. If you're a Mexican citizen or European citizen, you have to have a visa. So they check your visa to make sure that, and it makes customs and immigration's job in the United States easier because they already know you have your documents, and unless they want to turn you around for whatever reason, but they already know you have your document. So that's what they actually find. They call it lack of due diligence on the airline's part. So that's why the airline won't even let you get on the plane. And actually, Michael's asking me, do you plan to obtain Mexican citizenship, Ernie? Yes, I do, actually. I'll tell you what, Michael, I'm scared of the cultural and history exam. So I'm waiting, and I'm so close to the 60. I'm not going to tell anybody totally how, I think I've said how old I am before, but I'm close to 60. So I'm already getting to that point where I'm like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna wait till I can waive the cultural and history exam. I still have to take the Spanish exam. And yes, oh, Laura, actually, I am going to get dual citizenship, and there are some advantages and disadvantages, and I've discussed the disadvantages, especially if you're a naturalized citizen. It's a little bit harder. Mexican by birth, like Michael, I believe you have it by birth. You can never lose it. You can't lose your citizenship. But a Mexican by naturalization, there are certain things, like, for example, if you live outside the country for more than 5 years, you can lose your citizenship. If you do any kind of official business as a U.S. citizen, you can lose your citizenship. Uh, but the cool thing about having it is that, believe it or not, you can travel to more places than with a U.S. passport, with a Mexican passport, uh, without having to get a visa. Actually, for example, I'll give a perfect example, and people use Cuba, but I'm not even going to use Cuba. Brazil. If you're a U.S. citizen, you need an actual visa to go to Brazil, and I believe Mexico is one of the countries, because they're in Latin America, that does not require a visa. So I can literally travel on my Mexican passport if and when I get my. Um, and the reason why I say if is I still have to pass the Spanish test, which I don't think I'm going to have a problem, but you never know, and never say never. So, or never say it's in the bag. But once I do get my Mexican citizenship, there's a lot of, you can travel to more places, and I think that's what my wife and I like more than anything else. There's a lot of legal processes that you can do in Mexico a lot easier as a Mexican citizen. I was given, actually, the advice that was given to me by a Mexican, an attorney that does corporate immigration. They told me that uh, they told me that you're better off just staying a permanent resident because you get the same benefits. as you do with, and also you get the protection of the consulate as an American citizen. The one thing you need to understand when you get Mexican citizenship, and I tell everybody, and I understand this when I'm going to do it, and I want to do it more for I, I, I'm being proud of living in Mexico. I'm doing it more for not just being able to travel. I just love being in Mexico, and I want to get my Mexican citizenship. But I do realize that I am going to lose certain diplomatic privileges because in Mexico they see you have to do everything as a Mexican. If you're a Mexican citizen, the thing about Mexican citizenship in Mexico, and I said this before, up until 1997, Mexico did not consider dual citizenship. As a matter of fact, people that would naturalize previous to 1997 lost their Mexican citizenship because they were basically saying, we do not recognize dual citizenship. You became an American citizen. You are no longer a Mexican citizen. After 1997, they passed a law that says that's not fair, that's not right. Everybody that is born in Mexico or whatever deserves Mexican citizenship. That was not right what they did before. So therefore, from now on, a Mexican citizen will be a Mexican citizen forever. And we're talking about by birth, not by naturalization. So my wife has friends that, yes, Americans have, oh, really? I didn't know that. You know what? I didn't know that Brazil started giving Americans. I know that when I was there diplomatically, Americans had to, as a matter of fact, my kid's family came down for his graduation when I was in Brazil, and they had to get visas. And so, and actually a lot of it had to do with reciprocity. And I didn't know that changed actually. But, so, and here's actually Americans in Brazil can go in visa free. So basically, like I was saying, that actually somebody else says new challenge for Ernie. No one video on retired life in Mexico once a month. Si se puede, Ernie. So that's basically in the citizenship. You just, after 1997, like I was saying, basically, we have friends that naturalized, lost their citizenship. They just have to go back to the consulate and say, I want to get my citizenship back, and they give it back to them. But that's, and then also you were saying, though Americans still need visa for Bolivia, Russia, Iran, Cuba, Venezuela, yes, and that's you. A Mexican passport gives you, and actually, you were saying Mexicans can now travel Russia through the e-visa scheme, but Mexico gives you a lot more leeway as far as traveling, and it also gives you a lot more right. There's a lot of people that get Mexican citizenship because they want to own land on the coastal waters or whatever, on the beach. Yes, I know there's a fideicomiso that takes care of that and a trust, but people feel better owning their property. If we want to buy a piece of property on the beach, I can buy a piece of property on the beach if I'm a Mexican citizen. No, Lisa, you don't have to. Do you have to take all those tests if you get your dual citizenship through birthright? No, you don't have to. Actually, Lisa, I think you've asked this question before. If one of your parents, you can actually do the whole process by birthright. You could do it at a Mexican consulate. You don't have to come here to Mexico to do it. You just go to the Mexican consulate through Mexican Citizenship Services, and you provide them the documentation, and they will actually issue you a Mexican passport. And they also they won't issue the voter card, the INE. They will issue what they call a matricula. And that matricula is basically a Mexican ID card. And in order to get your INE, you would have to come here to Mexico and register to where they register the voters or the INE office and get your INE. But you can actually do the whole process at the Mexican consulate. You don't have to take any tests. The tests are just for naturalization. And I know Michael saying, I see the Mexican passport getting stronger and stronger. Uh, yes, it is. One thing though that I see that's happening, and the thing that I do see happening with what I do, I see this movement coming around. There's these entrepreneurs. I think there's one called the Nomad Capitalist. There's a couple that are saying, renounce your citizenship or your U.S. citizenship and go get a Mexican. They start basically. There's this movement of holding multiple passports for tax reasons, for entrepreneur reasons, for I don't know, I want to escape the United States or I want to escape. I've seen these YouTube videos and they suggest getting these passports from all over the world, and they give you this advice. The Netherlands passport is the best passport to have. One of the passports that they talk about is Mexico, and they say how great having a Mexican passport is. The thing you need to understand about having a Mexican passport, okay, is that once you get naturalized, okay, once you get naturalized, one of the ways of losing your naturalization, now you're already an American, Canadian, whatever other citizenship you might have. You get your Mexican citizenship, and this is something that nobody, the Nomad Capitalist or any of these other YouTubers tell you that are talking, and usually they're financial channels. I don't know why. To be honest with you, I'm not into that kind of stuff of going overseas and making money and I don't know, becoming rich off of going overseas. But one of the things is, as a matter of fact, they even tell you how to buy passports. If you invest a certain amount of money in a country, they give you a passport, and they suggest having as many passports as you can have, like citizenships. But here's the thing in Mexico. One of the things that you cannot do is you can be a dual citizen. I can be an American citizen because I was an American citizen first, naturalize, and become a Mexican citizen. But the minute I get citizenship in another country, let's say I go to Norway and I take this nomad capitalist advice, go to Norway, get a get a Norwegian passport. The minute I get citizenship in another country, other than the country that I had citizenship in before, I lose my Mexican citizenship. That is one of the ways of losing your naturalized citizenship here in Mexico. And I don't think anybody's ever mentioned that. If you're going to get Mexican citizenship, it needs to be the last citizenship you get. And also Mexico, when you're a Mexican citizen, even by naturalization, and even Michael, who he got it through birth, when Michael comes into Mexico, Michael is a Mexican citizen. He might be a U.S. citizen. He might have been born in the U.S. and got his, but when you enter Mexico, you are a Mexican citizen. Mexico does not recognize any of your other citizenships. Okay. So if, for example, you get in trouble and you say, I want to talk to the U.S. consulate because I'm an American citizen, Mexico is going to say, well, that's fine. You were a U.S. citizen, but you're Mexican first. And doesn't matter if you got your Mexican citizenship second. You're a Mexican citizenship first, and you're in the country of Mexico. That's why if you do any legal processes that you're not as a U.S. citizen, you lose your citizenship. Lambden. Gracias por todo. I de California del Sur. It was my pleasure, Landon. Hold on here. Oh, you were telling me that when Bolsonaro became president, that's when they changed the passport rule. Actually, Michael, what happened? Brazil's a very proud country, and a lot of things were reciprocity. And the fact that you needed a visa to get in the United States, um, they basically said, "Well, we need a visa to go to the United States. You need a visa to come back. You need a visa to come to Brazil." Actually, believe it or not, when I was in Brazil, they were starting a biometrics program. That's when CBP like started fingerprinting people when they come in. And Brazil basically said, "Oh, you're going to fingerprint all the Brazilians? We're going to fingerprint all the Americans that come in." And literally, they had warehouses full of fingerprint cards. When I got there, they didn't know what to do because they were trying to go to a biometric system, but they did it just for the fact to spite the not spite the United States, but they were really big into reciprocity when I was there. If you're going to do it this way, we're going to do it this way. Um, Yes, correct, Ernie. It is also applies to everyone who has dual citizenship from either U.S. or Europe. Once you land in the country, you adhere to the country's laws that your citizenship is from. And that's just the way it works. And that's one of the things that you can't say, "I want U.S. consulate protection. I want to run to the embassy. I'm a U.S. citizen." As a matter of fact, even if you are a Mexican citizen, let's say you run to the U.S. embassy and say, "I'm a U.S. citizen. You can't touch me." Mexico's going to say, "Let him out here. He's a Mexican citizen also, and he's a Mexican citizen first." Uh, yes, that's true, Michael. You cannot, as a matter of fact, you cannot travel to U.S. nor Mexico using opposite passports. You're not supposed to. And here's the thing, and this was brought to my attention a lot, and this happens a lot. Mexican citizens, it's very common on the border, and you've probably heard of this, Michael, too. They want to get a tip, but they're also dual nationals, and they'll come in and they'll actually come in on their U.S. passport, and then they'll actually get a tip, get an FMM, like if they were Americans, without saying that they were Mexicans, and then they will get the tip, and they will travel in with their U.S. plated vehicle, and they travel in on their U.S. plated vehicle, and it's a very common practice at the border. But it's actually illegal to do that because if you're a Mexican citizen, you can't do that. You can't get a tip, and number two, you can't. That's a legal process. When you enter Mexico, you need to enter Mexico as a Mexican citizen. Now, if you're a Mexican citizen by birth, what's going to happen to you? You get fined. And from what I understand, the fine is very, very large. And most people say, "Well, how are they going to know?" Well, guess what? Where you were born is actually on your passport. I mean, if you have a U.S. passport and now, if you're born in the U.S., there's a lot of people that were born in the U.S., but I'm talking about Mexican citizens that naturalize. Now, do I see it enforced? Not really. I've never seen it enforced because it's a very common practice. I mean, literally, I know it happens all the time. But what happens if you come in as a naturalized citizen on your U.S. passport, get an FMM, and get a tip? You lose your citizenship. Very easy. That's bottom line. You lose your citizenship. So there are things that you need to keep in mind when you get Mexican citizenship. Lisa, Michael, I'm having a hard time locating my father's birth certificate. My mother lost it, and my father is deceased. Actually, Lisa, um, you might want to check if your mom knows where your father was born. I know not all states, but I know, for example, in Monterrey, in Nuevo Leon, birth certificates are public record, and you might be able to get a copy through the public records. So if you know exactly where it is that he was born, now here's the problem with, especially with our generation, with my generation, maybe the birth certificates aren't computerized or whatever, or it might have been a little town in Mexico that didn't keep good records. That's where I see a lot of people having problems. But depending, what you might want to check into, Lisa, is that and especially is where your father was born, and see if you can get a public, because most birth certificates here in Mexico are public record. You should be able to get it to there. But hopefully you can get that birth certificate. But if I'm not, oh yeah, but is your mother's a U.S. citizen, if I'm not mistaken, right, Lisa? I was going to say if your mom was Mexican citizen, you could get it through your mom. But that's one of the ways that you might want to check, because I know that even my wife has obtained her birth certificate just by uh, through the public records here in Nuevo León. And I do know though that if it was like he was born in a small town before they had computers, of course, most of our parents were born in our generation were born before they had computers. So, and depending on how well the town kept records, they may be able to pull the birth certificate or get you a certified birth certificate through their records. And some of the small towns, actually, believe it or not, they're so small, everybody knows everybody. They should be able to get you a birth certificate through their public record. I mean, certify a birth certificate for you. Oh boy, the Mexican customs will grill you for that. Yes. Are you talking, Michael, about the getting a tip as a U.S. citizen? Yes. Actually, Lisa, here's the thing. Your mother is a U.S. citizen, but her parents were born in Mexico. Now, your mother can get her Mexican citizenship through her parents. And actually, you know what, Michoacan, you might be able to find it on public records. You might want to check if you have family or whatever in Michoacan, or somebody that can check it, the public records in Michoacan. You might be able to get that birth certificate. The other thing you can do, Lisa, is your mom can get her citizenship, right? She's a citizen by birth because her parents were born in Mexico. And then once she gets her citizenship, this might be a path. If she go and you go to the consulate, she can get it through her parents, but of course she needs to have the documentation too. I'm not saying this. And then if she gets her Mexican citizenship, you should be able to get yours. Now, if your mom doesn't fix it, then the only other way is to that 2-year track that I'm talking about. Remember, I in my video. Oh, Wilfredo, if you can't find the town records, the church keeps good records of baptism. Actually, that's one way, Wilfredo. Wilfredo's kind of right. That's one way in those small towns. If you can get, let's say they have a baptismal for certificate, and then they can go back to the town to certify your certificate, your birth certificate. Yeah, the registro civil. The only thing, Mike, that's just what I was talking about, Michael, is the municipality in Michoacan, and you do it through the registro civil at the embassy or consulate. And yes, that's true. Now the only problem is in the municipality. Sometimes the registro, that's the problem. If it's too small of a town, sometimes the registro civil's not, they lose records, or I don't know, the courthouse burned or whatever it is, or the registro civil building burned and they lost everything pre 1970. That happens down here in Mexico, especially in the smaller towns. But if it was in a larger place in Michoacan, or the municipality kept good records, you should be able to get that birth certificate through the registro civil. And actually, you might even be able to get like I said, through the consulate or the embassy, to contact the registro civil where where your dad was born, and get that documentation, or confirm that he was born there. I don't know if they need the actual birth certificate or they can actually do confirmation over through the consulate if they get it confirmed officially and just give you your citizenship. So that's hopefully everything works out, Lisa. But your mom should be able to get it, and then you could get it from your mom. And also, the other thing too, if your mom can't get it, hopefully you can get it to that. I do have his baptismal certificate. I have a lot of his paperwork. The issue is his name was different on all of his paperwork. Yeah, that's going to be in Mexico. The names are the hardest part. And then and I've seen this before too. What happens in the United States sometimes when you're born, they put, on the birth certificate, your dad's name may just be his first last name and not his second last name, or not his full, because they use their legal name here in Mexico is their father's last name first and then their mother's last name. And if that doesn't match, there's a lot of issues. But just my advice is keep on going, Lisa. Try, don't give up. There's always a way around it, in the sense that they may want you to jump extra steps to try to prove that this is the same person. But that's the big thing that that you should do here. Ernie, you should get StreamYard. Actually, this software, you could have the guests participate live with voice and camera feature. Is actually, Michael, I can do that with this. I use a software called Ecamm Live. I can bring up to, I don't know, 15 or 20 guests. It's the same thing. The only difference is the software that I use is a little bit more feature rich than StreamYard or EVMux. So I use this. But I can bring guests in. I don't know if you've seen, Michael, I do a thing with Mexico Relocation Guide. That's how I bring her in. That's how I've interviewed her. I do a lot of expat interviews. I don't know if you've seen where I'm on one side of the screen and instead of the chat, someone else is on. I can actually bring 4 or 5 people on. The other thing that I've tried, and this has been, but I kind of quit doing it. I did it once and it kind of didn't work, but I took 5 people on Zoom and I told them, okay, I'm going to be able to bring you in on Zoom. And those 5 people were going to be able to, I was going to have a live. I did it, but I had a lot of technical issues doing it, even with the software. And so the people from Zoom communicating with the people. Now this software is kind of matured to do that. But I was trying to stream to Facebook and YouTube, so I kind of just gave up on that. But I might do something like that. Hey, you know what? First 5 people that send me the email, I'm going to bring you on live, and you get to answer any questions. Like I tried at the very beginning. My first live stream, actually, it was my first live stream, but I had some issues with people seeing me on Facebook, and then I had some issues with the people from Zoom, the people from Zoom seeing what the people from, I don't remember if I had some, as a matter of fact, that's where I met Gringos or Us, and they had asked me on that live stream if they should make a YouTube channel. That was my first live stream, and they ended up doing it. I'll do it, Wilfredo. I'll do it. Let me know next time you're going to do it. Yeah, you know what? I can bring people on live. And actually, how many guests can I have? I think I can have on to 10 guests. I would just have to, what I would have to do is I'd have to change the layout for each guest. And then I just bring them on. It's really easy. I just send a link. Actually, for my Zoom consults, the only reason why I haven't gone to just this software, I still use Zoom and I still pay a yearly fee to Zoom to have a membership. is I have a scheduling software that automatically creates a Zoom meeting and automatically creates a Zoom link. But I can actually create a link. I have a link here whenever you want it, when I have the interview mode off, but I turn it on and then everybody just logs in and basically it's a browser. You just get in through your browser and you just tell it what camera you have, what microphone you want to use. And I can put you on the screen, basically up to 10 guests on the screen. It's just, and I can even do like this with the chat, bring up comments and everything with the chat. I can do that. The only reason why I haven't gone to that on my Zoom consult is it's more confusing because people, even with Zoom, I have problems getting their camera working or whatever. Sometimes I end up just talking to them on audio. And so I just stick to Zoom because people, that's what they know because of the pandemic, everybody used Zoom to do communications. I still use this software as a virtual camera in Zoom, but maybe next time we'll do this where we'll, like I said, bring people on. Laura, I look forward to your vlog in the Mercado most of the time, early in the morning at Cananduras. There won't be loud, so we can enjoy the ambience of the local food there. Actually, you know what? We're gonna go as soon early in the morning. The reason why on Tuesday, Laura, I have to be at the that show that I was telling you guys about. I have to be at the location at noon, around noon, 1 o'clock, so that I can set up because we're gonna wire. I have to run a Ethernet wire to the back, and so we're gonna have to go in the morning because I got to get back before noon. So I'm gonna go early in the morning. That's the other thing. I want to avoid all the music playing because I don't want to get YouTube upset with me playing copyrighted music. So. All right. Well, we've got 2 hours. Hold on here. Oh, Wilfredo, as soon as he permanently moves to Querétaro, he'll start a private Facebook and do weekly meetups and go to places in small group. That'll be cool, Wilfredo. Let us know. And actually, if you want to advertise that group on my Facebook group, I'd as soon as you start it up, let me know. So that way you can promote it on my Facebook group. I always say we're going to go an hour and we go 2 hours. And I guess time's up. So thank you guys for joining me on my live stream. I really do enjoy you guys giving your input, us all talking together, giving out some good information. And thank you so much. Look out for my surprise lives. And that'll give us an opportunity. Next one, hopefully, I'm not going to promise anything because if things go south that I need to be at the location before or whatever, but we do have to go to the market. We need to get more vegetables. Actually, remember I told you we spent like 500 pesos and that was a week's worth. It actually lasted us 2 weeks. We didn't go to the market last week and actually now we're out. But 500 pesos got me somewhere the last time. So hopefully we can show you the market now. And one thing that I am going to say about the market is you're going to see a lot, and I know I'm going to get a lot of people say, well, the vegetables and the conditions. Look, here's the thing. Basically, I'm going to give you instructions on how to wash your vegetable. There is a way of, you got to remember all the vegetables are organic, fresh, not treated with chemicals. They come straight out of the ground. And so you do have to clean them for bacteria and everything else, but there is a way of cleaning them. And this is the way we do have a method of cleaning the vegetables. And it's actually a method that was not just my wife knows it, but it's a method that was taught to me when I went overseas. I actually went overseas and it was taught, this method was taught to me. They sell the stuff in the grocery stores here in Mexico. You can get it. And it's basically just iodine that will clean the vegetables and get rid of all the bacteria. And iodine, when you soak the vegetables in iodine, you don't soak them in water anymore. You soak them in iodine, you dry them off. And they're fine, they're clean, and they're safe to eat. Iodine doesn't do anything to your body. So, I mean, as a matter of fact, people use iodine to as a disinfectant for cuts, and you basically clean your vegetables that way. So before everybody starts giving me comments that, ooh, the carrots are all full of dirt. Yeah, they're all full of dirt because it comes straight from the ground, and they're more healthy for you than coming from the supermarket. I'm telling you that they're more healthy for you, because most supermarkets, even in Mexico, they have to get them across Mexico and they have to get them to the supermarket. So a lot of times they treat things with wax, pesticides, all sorts of stuff. But this stuff that I'm going to be going to is 100% organic, literally. So you just have to take your precautions in cleaning the vegetables. But I'll give you those instructions if we are able to do a live from the market. And it'll be in the morning on Tuesday. So, and the live event, it's a Johnny Burgo. He's a blues singer that's going to be here. He's got several albums out, CDs out. He's internationally known. And he's if I'm allowed by the people to give it out, I'll give out the link, and you can see a live stream straight from San Miguel of a concert. So look forward to that too. And Laura, I spent $70 for about 3 days worth of organic vegetables. Always clean them, even if they're prepackaged and clean, even in the U.S. Yeah, actually, those organic vegetables, well, you always clean vegetables regardless. But actually, you can't beat it here in Mexico, especially if you go to the mercado. Number one, you save money, and number two, you're eating healthy. I mean, literally healthy. You don't have to go to Whole Foods or whatever that is in the United States, or Trader Joe's, and spend the amount of money that you do over there. So, and take care, everybody. Thank you very much. And until next time, don't forget to like. If you didn't like it, don't forget to dislike it, because like I said, helps me get that word out. A dislike serves two purposes. If you didn't like it, it helps me. Both likes and dislike help me it helps me to make content to help you, regardless. And YouTube sees a dislike. I mean, I know a lot of people think, I'm going to dislike it because YouTube's not going to show his video. No, actually, YouTube shows my video more because it actually shows that someone was watching it. So it helps me get the word out. And it also helps me with feedback. So either way, and subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, especially now that I'm going to be doing these surprise live streams so that you get an alert when I come online. I know some of you may be working and may not be able to come online, but at least you can watch it later too. So thank you. Thank you for everything. And as always, thanks for your support. We'll see you next week. And of course, we might see you one time this week. We might see you 2 times this week. We might see you 3. And I will get back to my videos. I promise I'll get back to my videos. The first video coming up is probably going to be explaining my live streams for those people that don't come onto my live streams, and so that they can see what's going on. And and then after that, I think I have some people that wanted me to do a video on importing vehicles. I did say I was going to do there is one type of importation of vehicles that there's no restrictions, and you can actually import them in tax-free. And I'm going to do a video on that. and I'm going to try to do another video on predictions probably for next year's residency requirements. So stay tuned for that. I'm going to actually try to give some insight into what are the possible residency requirements. They're going to go up next year. They're going to go up next year. Now, there's only one thing that SRE can do that they won't go up, but I doubt they're going to do it. The last couple of years, they haven't done it. So if they stick with the minimum wage, I've done some research on what the minimum wage proposals are for next year and give you some idea of what the actual requirements for residency will be next year, based on both proposals. And hopefully SRE will go with the UMA formula instead of the minimum wage. So thank you very much. I think I've said goodbye enough times. And until next time, stay safe and stay informed.